What does the internet know? It's me again, diary. Boy, sometimes life is hard. My love of video games has been repeatedly put on hold in lieu of my need for money and education. I've also started compiling an archive of all my UFO footage, much to the chagrin of my psychiatrist. The videos don't lie, doctor.
That's a UFO. That's totally a UFO right now. Aliens.
Despite the sobering distraction of reality, I did manage to play through 2003's The Black Mirror, a third-person point-and-click game of Czech origins. Don't worry, it's not broken. It's just satanic witchcraft. Not owning the digital release of this game, I can't attest for its quality, but I can say that this game was a real headache to get running and stay running. It installs like normal, but as soon as you try running it, it asks to restart to install drivers. This is an infinite loop that can only be halted by finding a no CD crack. I don't even know what this was about. Afterwards, expect save files to disappear, random crashes, and game-breaking glitches. Once in the thick of it and clicking away, I found a pretty bloody and story-heavy puzzler that shoots for greatness, but ends up like most of my dates. In the 80s, for some reason, a man named Samuel Gordon returns home to Blackmere Castle in England upon hearing of his grandfather's death. Everyone in the castle assumes that William Gordon fell to his death accidentally, except Samuel, and you if you watch the opening sequence. It's clear that there are certainly some spooky doings afoot. Upon arriving in England, Samuel is plagued with headaches and prophetic dreams, so he takes his frustrations out on the staff.
Why doesn't anyone maintain the rear garden? And what about the fountain? I want you to clean the fountain. Either you clean it by tomorrow, or you can start looking for a new job.
He also decides to investigate his grandfather's death, while evading a detective doing the very same thing. There are over 5 hours of dialogue in this game. In that time, we learn a lot about the legacy of Samuel's family, and the ins and outs of the surrounding area. Though this is billed as a horror game, much of that horror is atmospheric. There's a decent handful of some weird occult stuff, and this crazy cool moment when Samuel fights a wolf.
This isn't looking good.
Most of the time, however, the story focuses on Samuel's plan to find some ancient keys that he thinks will stop the string of murders and end a curse on his family. In between the main story arc are a lot of side stories that only serve as a source for plot holes and inconsistencies. Examples and spoilers. Samuel mentions many times that someone important to him, important enough to keep a framed photo next to his bed, was killed. Maybe. Something bad happened. There's mention of a fire, and then they never come back to that. Was she a wife? A sister? Nobody else mentions her. The gardener, Henry, is found dead with his body entirely drained of blood. Why is his blood drained? How did the murderer drain his blood? Why is he the only victim who wasn't simply killed? Also, after James escapes from the insane asylum via a hole underneath his bed, he is subsequently recaptured and put back in his cell. Not wanting to return, he opts to hang himself, but he still has a hole under his bed. You even escape through that same hole to avoid the authorities. He could just leave. Also, all throughout this game it's implied that Samuel's uncle, Robert, has been up to some shady experiments. His father even disowns him in his will, but what was it? We never find out. He just dies off screen at some unknown time. Also, Samuel has dreams of all the people that die in this game. Why didn't he dream of Robert? Why was everyone concerned that Robert was missing before he died? Where was he? In Chapter 5, everybody's like, oh no, Robert's missing. So he didn't actually die until the end of the chapter. And you know he just died because there's a freshly painted symbol like all the other victims had on the wall. I actually didn't see the twist ending coming because of all the inconsistencies in the story. Okay, cards on the table, I'm gonna blow the ending of the story, so skip ahead if you want. Samuel's actually the murderer! Well, more like an ancient evil spirit manipulating Samuel while he's sleeping. Knowing that, how did Samuel kill William in the opening of the game? He wasn't even in England at the time it happened. He only showed up afterwards, when he found out that he died. I'm assuming he killed them because he finds the same symbols with all the victims. The event that kicks off this entire story is William dying. So if Samuel was out of the country, how did he do it? Furthermore, how does Vic get killed? Samuel is in Wales visiting a family member. Once Samuel returns, the detective said that Vic must have wandered away from town last night, while Samuel was on his way back from Wales. There's a symbol next to Vic, so obviously he's one of Samuel's victims. The wolves in the area haven't proved to be formidable. Upon learning that he was the murderer, Samuel kills himself, but he already went through the trouble of ridding himself of the curse. He took the only evidence linking him to the case. It's not like it was his fault, he had a creepy ghost inside him. There's like 5 people left alive in the town anyway. How bad could it be to just not die? The Black Mirror's gameplay is plagued with a lot of frustrating mechanics. At the top of that list would be waiting. There are several times when you'll need something from a character and they'll tell you to check back later. As far as I know, there isn't a way around this. You literally have to just wander back and forth between areas, checking back every now and then. It could take an obscene amount of time before you get lucky. If there is a cheaper way to stretch out a game's length, I do not know it. There is also a great deal of pixel hunting, making it easy to skip over important items because they're barely visible. I also went through the first hour of the game not knowing that left click is look, and right click is look more. In only a couple situations you can right click to investigate further. This happens at the oddest times. When you finally get into William's study in Chapter 1, the door locks behind you. There is seemingly nothing that will pry it open. Your impotent inventory holds a coin, a photo, a token, a camera, a pocket watch, a note, a chess piece, a music box, and a small key. Of these items, which do you think would be most suited for door opening? The small key? Most keys do open doors, this is true. I personally would have gone for the sword up there. Maybe pry open the door. Little did I know you can right-click the chess piece to produce a door-opening knife. How the fuck would I know that? I had to play the first chapter twice because of a game-ending glitch. I first noticed it when I went down into the cellar to talk to Bates, who was sharpening a knife. I then walked upstairs to find Bates in the kitchen cooking. 2 Bates. 2 jobs at once? Well, I guess you're just a housework master, Bates. No, that's stupid. I finally broke down and looked up a walkthrough that said I needed to talk to Morris, the stable hand. But when I went to the stables, he wasn't there. After a good while of wandering around aimlessly, I looked up a downloadable save file that would put me back into Chapter 1, where, to my relief, he did show up. An unmentioned side effect of this, though, was if I tried to overwrite the downloaded save file, the game would crash, losing all my progress. Some problems also resulted from the fact that Samuel is a prick, so in order to progress sometimes, you have to think like a prick. When you meet the character Richard, you startle him and break his chemical sample. He asks reasonably for an inexpensive replacement from a drugstore. Instead of just doing it, Samuel cramps a bunch of shit into a bottle and tells him it's the real thing. This causes an explosion in his lab. All he had to do was replace the bottle. Richard's logic makes no sense to me either. Samuel needs to get into the tomb, so he asks Richard for the key. Richard says Eleanor has it, but he thinks it would be disrespectful to take it from her. In exchange for help with his experiment, he gives you a bottle of acid to melt the lock on the tomb. How this is less disrespectful, I do not know. Inside is a secret passage that leads to another locked gate. Richard will gladly tell you how to steal that key, right from Eleanor's jewelry box. This game has a few things working for it, but the actual gameplay is simply not enjoyable for me. The best part was the ability to quickly move between screens by double-clicking on hotspots. Otherwise, every movement is slow, items are impossible to find, and there are very cheap deaths at a couple points that you have no way of anticipating. There isn't anything particularly bad about the way this game looks. The 3D sprites look nice enough, but occasionally the animations are lazy. Everyone moves like slow motion robots, and they're voiced pretty appropriately.
Doctor, can I have a word with you?
Yes, all right.
Sometimes they sound like one of those text-to-speech programs.
9/11 was an inside job orchestrated by the Illuminati.
Conversations are sometimes slow and awkward, and there is simply too much dialogue to sit through. It got to the point where I'd just take a break every time a new character was introduced.
There's a system of corridors under the cemetery where the souls...
So you knew Henry, our gardener, right?
Yes. I don't want to talk...
Everyone has so much to say, and so little of it is actually important. You could have convinced me that the Gravedigger was a morbid weirdo, or that Harry is set in his ways in a third of the time. Good dialogue can sum up a character quickly, and doesn't require endless speeches. The music isn't half bad, but they only play it for less than a minute when something important happens, like looking at spooky photos, or heads falling out of buckets. This is also why you've probably heard the same track looping over and over again in the background during this video. I mean diary entry. Cutscenes are so compressed that they look like muddy, pixelated soup. I looked up some of the reviews for this game and was surprised at how well received it was. It's even considered by some to be the best adventure game produced in the Czech Republic. This made me feel like quite the ass as a whole for speaking so poorly of it. In truth, it does have the pieces of a fun game. They've just been assembled all wrong. Cool sprites with wonky animation, spooky music that doesn't last more than a minute, rich history that doesn't affect the plot, complex plot with too many plot holes. Maybe the game fares better in its mother tongue, but I didn't have a memorable adventure. Jewels for being able to fast travel, for killing that wolf, for cool death scenes, and for killing that wolf. No jewels for too many glitches, plot holes, boring gameplay, and boring dialogue. If I had to rate it, I'd say it's not so good. But hey, what do I know? I'm just an asshole in some asshole's house. Shut up!